Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so thrilled that you're joining us here today for our Einstein's Incredible Universe Science Showcase. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes, but if you'd like, go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know who you are, where you're joining from, and what you're excited about hearing in our webinar today. My name is Amanda Sullivan. I'm Senior Program Developer at the National Girls Collaborative Project, and I'm joined by some incredible guest speakers, and I'm also joined by my colleague, Brenda Britch, who you'll probably see in the chat, answering questions, putting some links in, and helping you all out today. If this is your first time joining us for an NGCP event, welcome. We're so thrilled that you're here. And I just want to share a little bit of background on who we are and what we do before we meet our amazing speakers. So, the vision of the National Girls Collaborative Project is to support and create STEM experiences that are as diverse as the world we live in. We do this by working to connect, to create, and collaborate with our networks. So, our goals are on screen here. We work to build and sustain a network of advocates to provide equitable and inclusive STEM opportunities. We also work to catalyze equity in STEM from research to practice by providing actionable knowledge that transforms the STEM experience. And we also work to increase our own collective impact by strengthening our organizational effectiveness. We have a lot of different resources that you might be interested in. You found our national webinars. We're so thrilled that you're here, and we offer them monthly on a variety of topics that are related to equity, related to STEM, related to education. So we hope we'll see you for some upcoming events as well. We have a monthly newsletter, which is where you can be the first to hear about our national events, new STEM resources, research, and other reports. And you can find so much on our website. We hope you'll check out our website, ngcproject.org, where you can find statistics and research related to girls and women in STEM, blog posts, and other helpful information. And now I'm really excited to introduce our speakers and turn it to today's topic, where we'll be hearing all about this amazing work in the Einstein's Incredible Universe project. We are joined live by three speakers, and we're joined in spirit by our fourth speaker on screen here, and I'll explain that in just a minute. But before I turn it to them to take it away, I just want to share a few brief words about each of these speakers who are doing such incredible work. And we're just so thankful that they're sharing their time with us here today. Erica Meehan works at the intersection of storytelling, impact, and philanthropy, leveraging documentary film and other media to drive social change and meaningful learning outcomes. As an impact producer specializing in STEM stories, she has developed strategic partnerships and engagement initiatives to enrich IMAX films and television programs that have taken audiences to the depths of the ocean, the farthest reaches of space, and millions of years back in time. We're also joined by Claire Quimby, a social scientist who has been working in the field of education research and program evaluation for the past decade. She works with a myriad of organizations who seek to make the world better for diverse learners. On this Einstein's Incredible Universe project, she's been helping to measure the impact of this citizen science project on the youth who participated, as well as the educators who guided them through this experience. We're also joined by Heidi Schran, a high school science teacher who currently teaches astronomy, biology, and physics at Talawanda High School in Oxford, Ohio. She has a passion for understanding things she can't easily see with the unaided eye, and therefore pursued her bachelor's and master's degree in microbiology. Continuing her personal exploration of our not readily visible universe, she started an astronomy course at her school and is involved with Quantum for All, which is working to make quantum physics more accessible to high school students. And we're also joined through a video that I will play later by Janna Mino. She's not here live for the exciting reason that she's welcoming a new baby today. And we're just so thrilled that we're still going to hear her voice and learn a little bit about her experience through a video she created. But let me just say a few words about Janna. She graduated from Cleveland State University with a bachelor's degree in physics, chemistry, and biology. She has a Master of Arts in Teaching degree from Kent State University and taught high school science classes at an innovative STEM school. She joined the Hathaway Brown community in 2023 after serving as the STEM Education Program Specialist with the Ohio Department of Education. And she's now the director of the Science Research and Engineering Program, which allows girls to get experiential learning experience in science and engineering labs all over Northeast Ohio. We have such an incredible panel of speakers today, and I don't want to take any more of their time. I'd love to turn it over to Erica to start introducing what this Einstein's Incredible Universe project is all about.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the great introduction. So as you just heard, my name is Erica Meehan, and I'm an impact producer. That means that I collaborate with filmmakers mostly on STEM content to create education and engagement campaigns that deepen the impact of the story they are telling. So often that means working with communities and after-school programs. This particular project is called Einstein's Incredible Universe. It's an IMAX film about astrophysics that's funded by the National Science Foundation. And my role is to develop strategic partnerships and programs that enable young people to have hands-on experiences with space science. Slide, please. So the film tells the story of Albert Einstein and his groundbreaking theories related to space, time, and gravity. But it also tells the story of two amazing female astrophysicists who are working today to take Einstein's work to the next level. The first is Andrea Ghez, and Andrea was first enchanted by space and space science when she watched the moon landing with her parents. Slide, please. And she went on to study astrophysics, and today she is one of the world's leading black hole hunters. So her connection to Einstein is that she tests Einstein's theories in places with the most extreme gravity in the known universe. Andrea Ghez is a very special person because she's also the first woman to receive the Nobel Prize in astrophysics for her work on detecting a supermassive black hole at the center of our universe. Next slide, please. And engaging women and young girls and empowerment for young women in science is really, really important to Andrea, as you can see from the quote that she shares here. She's a big believer in getting girls engaged in science at an early age and in believing in themselves. And she hopes that through this film and through her other work that she can inspire other young women into the field. Slide, please. And the next astrophysicist that we profile is named Nargis Mavlovala. Nargis first got interested in space science when she was a young child on the rooftop of her home in Pakistan. She was watching a meteor shower, and she started getting really interested in understanding how the atmosphere works, how the universe works, and ultimately she set about on a lifelong quest to understand gravitational waves and to search for gravitational waves. So Einstein originally predicted that gravitational waves existed, but they had never been physically proven before. So if you can change the slide. Nargis went on to become part of the Nobel Prize award-winning team at Advanced LIGO that made the first direct observation of gravitational waves. So both of these women, Andrea and Nargis, together and separately through their own work, but together in the story, are furthering the work of Einstein and the contributions that he made to science 100 years ago. Slide, please. And one thing that we really love about Nargis is that she grew up in a family where she wasn't exposed to a lot of gender stereotypes, and it was kind of easy for her to break molds because she didn't have a lot of stereotypes thrust upon her. But we know from working with women, and we know from stories of young women that oftentimes they feel like there are stereotypes that they have to live up to. So it's important and empowering for us to be able to put a woman on screen who's breaking stereotypes and being successful at it. Next slide, please. So as we thought about these young women, it became, or as we thought about the two astrophysicists that we're featuring, it became apparent really quickly that the film provided an incredibly powerful opportunity to raise the profile of women in STEM, in addition to just engaging people about space science and astrophysics, and also to find novel ways to engage young women in STEM pursuits. So ultimately, we defined three goals for the project. Generally, kind of across all audiences, was to increase scientific literacy and encourage lifelong STEM learning. And we do that through the film, especially because films are seen by intergenerational groups of people and they live for a very long time, either on TV or in science centers. And it's an experience that's kind of unparalleled, especially when you see an IMAX film on a great big screen. It kind of transports you into a place you haven't been before. And it makes you feel kind of viscerally very excited about what you're seeing on the screen. Secondly, to unleash the power of curiosity and imagination. So Einstein, as a theoretical physicist, spent a lot of time in his own head, kind of thinking about how things could play out and answering the question for himself, what if? We call it the laboratory in his head. And that's what theoretical physics is all about. It's not something that you can explore or prove in real life. It's something that you have to think through and come up with theories about how things work. So we wanted to increase people's curiosity and imagination, recognizing that that leads to innovation in STEM. And then lastly, as I said, we wanted to be able to use the power of media to really elevate these female STEM professionals as role models and STEM ambassadors. Next slide, please. So we also developed a theory of change, which aligns with what I just said, which is that when you have a very meaningful and experiential learning opportunity, and it's coupled with accessible science that's understandable. This was a really big piece of it for us because people hear Einstein, it's so complicated, you know, he's a genius. But we really wanted to find ways to take the science that we were showing on the screen and make it approachable and accessible for all audiences. So combining, again, the meaningful experiential learning opportunities with accessible and approachable science and the role models that you can see on screen in the two female astrophysicists would lead to the impact that we desire. Slide, please. So we partnered with the National Girls Collaborative Project, and we really dived into the research and tried to understand what kind of program we could put together that would best respond to what we understand about how young girls feel about working in STEM. And some of these, I'm sure that all of you on this call are familiar with most of these things, but the idea that girls need multidimensional role models in order to break down stereotypes, we already had those in the two women that we were profiling. We wanted to find or create a program that was collaborative and community focused because young women do best in STEM when they feel that they belong to a community where they feel a sense of belonging. We know that when young girls take ownership of their own STEM learning and engage in work that they feel is meaningful, that their perception of STEM fields and their own STEM identity is improved. So we were really looking for some kind of program that we could build where young women could engage in something that felt very meaningful. And then finally, we wanted to promote the social and creative nature of STEM, both because that is, as I said, kind of what theoretical physics is all about in terms of the creativity and the imagination, but also that it's been shown that those kinds of experiences increase interest and engagement among young women in STEM. Slide, please. So, yeah, next one, there you go. So we partnered with the Dynamic Eclipse Broadcast Initiative, which is called DEB for short. And they have been working to enable groups of people across the path of totality for the April 8th eclipse earlier this year to conduct real-time solar observations through telescopes and to broadcast the imagery that they were collecting in near real time. And then also to deposit that imagery in a bank of images and data and information that scientists would be able to study for years to come to help them better understand the inner workings of the sun's corona. So like I said, the DEB initiative already had a plan and a framework and a large number of groups participating. And we were able to come to them with our NSF partnership and with our partnership with the National Girls Collaborative Project, and enable 20 more groups to join their program. And so the groups that we put together were very specifically women-led, and primarily young girls, although it was open to to all genders who were interested in participating. And we issued an RFP through the National Girls Collaborative Project, and ultimately we selected 20 group leaders across the path of totality to participate in our project. With the goals here, like you can see on screen, where girls who participated would be able to build their STEM skills and their identity, belonging, connect with other girls. We have the near peer mentors and role models, like we discussed earlier. And then kind of thinking back to the idea of doing meaningful work, they were going to be contributing valuable new data to science's understanding of the universe. Slide, please. So this is a list of all of the groups that ultimately were awarded funds from us, as well as workshops, training, and technology in order to participate in the program. And what I love about looking at this list is that it really kind of exemplifies the different kinds of groups that applied to work with us and the varied interests of those groups. So we had everything from middle schools to high schools to colleges. As well as we had science centers, we had children's science museums, we had lots of Girl Scout troops, Girls Inc., and other kinds of after-school programs that focus on girls in STEM, as well as just sort of girls groups that were not STEM related. And we also had groups that were coming from big cities, and then we had groups that were coming from very rural locations as well. So we had a really nice cross-section of women who were leaders of these groups, who were interested in participating. And I'd say that the number one concern for us as we were making our final selections was the commitment of the group leader, because we knew this was going to be a really heavy lift. You're going to hear all about how heavy a lift it was when Heidi speaks in a minute. But that was one of the most important criteria for us. Slide, please. So as I said, our 20 groups were part of this larger initiative, and you can see here an overlay where the purple stars represent where the groups we selected are located, and then you can see the smaller orange dots show all of the participants in the larger project. And so again, this larger DEB initiative wasn't just about women. We were focused on women and young women, but the initiative was, for all people who were interested, which definitely made things, I think, interesting and unique for us as our groups of women came into this space. Next slide, please. So the first thing that we did was we brought all of our group leaders to a 3-day workshop at the Great Lakes Science Center, and we trained them on how to use telescopes. We gave them telescopes, cameras, lenses, mounts, all of the equipment that they would need in order to participate in our project. Some people came in knowing a lot about astrophysics. Some people came in having never touched a telescope before in their lives, but just had a passion or an interest and a desire to learn more. So it was a very diverse group in terms of people's experience level. And I think everybody very quickly became a family of female leaders here, learning something for themselves that they intend to pass on to the students in their groups. Next slide. So after that, the leaders all went home with their equipment, and they trained their girls on how to use the equipment. This is a process that took about 6 months. We encouraged the leaders to connect and communicate with one another through a private Facebook group. And then we also put together a sharing board using Padlet, so the girls that were in the groups could communicate with one another as well. It was really important to us to build community so that the leaders would have a COP to support them, and that also that the girls could see that they weren't alone in their interests. One thing that we heard kind of consistently, both from the girls and also from the leaders, was that they felt like a unicorn before they came. They were unique. Their passions were unique. They didn't see a lot of people who felt the same ways that they did, and that suddenly, they went from being like a unicorn, like one of a kind, to being part of a community of unicorns. So a community where everyone, everyone identified in a similar way in terms of passion around STEM. Slide, please. So April 8th was Eclipse Day. It was a hugely exciting and important day for the total solar eclipse. And we had success at most of our sites, not all of our sites. You'll hear a little bit about that. But you can see on the left here an image of one of the girls who participated at the Great Lakes Science Center in Cleveland. And then on the right, you can see one of our groups. I think this is in Conway, Arkansas, as they started to capture data and imagery during the eclipse. The last part of our project I'm going to touch on and then turn it over to Claire is that we commissioned an independent research and evaluation project from Rockman et al. To assess the project outcomes and impacts. So we were interested in what young women were learning, but more than that, we're interested in what young women are feeling. So it was important to us, obviously, that they learned about astrophysics and about space science and about the contributions that they could make. But more importantly for us, we were really interested in whether or not they felt empowered to investigate space science, how they felt about identity and belonging related to STEM. So I'm going to turn it over to Claire now, and she's going to tell you a little bit about what we learned.
Thank you, Erica. This is just kind of sharing some snapshots of the different groups from Girl Scout troops. I think one of these is from one of the museums that participated. So a lot of diverse groups around the path of totality. Next slide. So these are some of the research questions that guided our program evaluation and research. We're interested in knowing, how does a program like this empower young girls to investigate space science? How does it build community, or how can it? What parts of the experience are impactful? And also, what are some of the hurdles or barriers that young girls or the groups they're part of might experience? And then how do they navigate those? Just a quick demographic slide to give you a sense of who these youth participants were, mostly in the age range of 13 to 18 years old, although we had some groups that were college aged, and then predominantly white, but then we also had a mix of other race and ethnicities as well. And just a snapshot of the overall impact, if we had to summarize the short version, it was a really positive experience for these participants. When we asked them in the post survey, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead in my talking. So this is just kind of tells you what their STEM background was. So a lot of these participants hadn't actually participated in a science program outside school before. 45% said no about that. And then, do you know any adults who work in a STEM career? A substantial number who said no, and then quite a few who said yes, but just one or two. So not a ton of STEM exposure necessarily among these participants. And the next slide, here's my little snapshot of overall impact I was talking about. So we have really strong agreement from participants that they would like to be part of a project like this again. This is from the post survey of all the youth that participated. And a great many who agreed or strongly agreed that the project made them think about how they can do great things in science. And that's kind of that emotional or attitudinal impact that we were really hoping to see. So it was great to see that emerge from their surveys. Some quick science knowledge items from the survey. We saw gains between their pre, which is the lighter color purple, and their post-survey responses, which are the darker purple, where they're rating their science knowledge higher on space science in general, eclipses, and current astronomical exploration. And then also reporting higher confidence in a lot of areas, explaining eclipses to other people, because that ended up being a large component of the projects, collecting and contributing data for a real citizen science project, getting people excited about space science, and using telescopes, which was like a really critical piece of this, as I'm sure Heidi and Janna will talk about. This is just one that I found really interesting about what are the most important skills or traits for scientists to have. We were curious, how do these young participants think about what it means to be a scientist? And it was interesting to see that things like attention to detail and book smart as personality traits, fewer participants selected those on their post survey. We only let them choose 3. So, pick the top 3 personality traits you think a scientist needs. And fewer people selected that, and more people selected the ones down below on their post surveys. So problem solver, that one went up slightly. A collaborator or a team player, being focused and being a good communicator. So it's really interesting to think about how young girls and participants are thinking about what science is and what your skills are that makes you a good contributor to science projects. And then I'll turn it over to Heidi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heidi Schran, and I am a high school science teacher at Talawanda in Oxford, Ohio. And our group collaborated with some students at Miami University, which is also in Oxford, Ohio. So that's why I have both of our institutions on this slide. Okay, next slide, please. I was the main leader. Joanna Hone, who was working with Miami University as a STEM outreach coordinator. She is in that top picture there. We are on the far right. She's got the hat on. She was the person who brought this grant to my attention, and she was there to help do things with me, and also brought with her she recruited 2 students on the far left that were Miami students. And so we had 7 high school students of mixed genders and 2 young college women. They were both freshmen at the university. And I have a map there where Oxford is. It's down in the southwest corner of Ohio. Okay, next slide, please. So this is a picture of us on one of our practices when we were getting the students to be more comfortable and competent with the equipment. We would practice sometimes just as our own team. And sometimes the project would have like a coordinated practice. And some of the times we got to do lunar practices because the moon is actually very photogenic and very, it looks really great whenever you're getting images. However, some of the challenges with these practices was that a lot of the students were not sure what role they wanted to be. A lot of people wanted to be, I came back and I had my group all together and I said, you know, what role do you want to be? And everybody was like, oh, I think I want to be like an outreach person. And no one really wanted to, very few people, and really practically nobody wanted to take the role of working, you know, being in charge of the telescope or being in charge of the computer. I think they were very intimidated. So it was hard to get them encouraged to actually take that step. Scheduling was a huge challenge for my group anyway. We had 2 Miami students and 7 high school students, all very involved in other activities. Meeting at a common time was really tricky. So I ended up oftentimes meeting with a portion of a group on one week and one particular day, and then the following week meeting a different day at a different time. So it was really not as cohesive as I would have loved it to be. And it was also kind of tricky during practices to get used to learning to use Discord, which is how we communicated with the folks who had trained us from the DEB Dynamic Eclipse Broadcast Initiative, and from that are hosted in they're housed in Southern Illinois University, but we met them when we went to the Great Lakes Science Center and got our equipment and got trained on them. But then we would have to connect through Discord, and that's not if you are an older female that doesn't play video games like myself, it's not something that I had ever used before this, and so that was a learning curve for me. But I also wanted to say, I don't know if I have it on a different slide or this one or not, but this slide reminds me of it. You can see one of my students wrapped up in a blanket. It was darn cold that night. These are images that our students took. I believe that image of the moon was from that evening, and it was just picturesquely beautiful and clear, which meant that it was also very cold. But some of the successes was that all the students, every single one of them, became competent with the telescope before Eclipse Day. And we were one of the groups that were asked to and offered and then asked to part of a streaming opportunity where we live streamed our coverage through SIU, and was then they would then put portions of it up on the NASA Live website. And that was a whole nother layer of and set of equipment that our students had to become versed with and comfortable with. And boy, I had two students that I would stereotypically, you would never have pegged them to be my standouts, because they are, you know, they did not take any honors or AP science courses. They were not the stereotypical, like, yes, I'm a science go-getter. They took the instructions for that kit. I didn't even look at them yet. They took it and they had it set up, and they were amazing on Eclipse Day and all the practices before that. So it was really fun to see that. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so before Eclipse Day, we had some outreach events, and those outreach events not only helped my students and my team to get comfortable with their Eclipse knowledge, but also just to, you know, share the excitement and the love of science and astronomy with other people. And one of them, we went to our local library and we had our equipment there. And it was kind of like sneaky, like parents put vegetables and like brownies or something. I tried to make it so that it was like also another practice. So we would take the equipment and the students would have to get it all set up and run it while we were at the library. We took images through the window in the library, and had people come, and the students did all kinds of ways you can safely watch the eclipse. There's an example of a colander that we took, a photo of a colander there that we took during the eclipse that shows all the little crescent moons and the holes of the colander. And so we made pinhole cameras. The student who's got the hat on in the bottom picture was she was so excited. I got her a template for making pinhole cameras from the internet. And she's like, you know what? I don't like the way this is. I'm going to redesign it. And she's one of my streamers, one of the young women that was amazing at streaming. And she just did an amazing job. And she redesigned the way that the pinhole camera came together and made it so much more efficient and easier for kids to build. And it worked great. Up in the top right picture is one of my students at second grade science day. I teach an astronomy class at the high school, and the seniors had off one day while the juniors had to take their ACTs here. And so I took a team of my senior students, including some of the ones from my group. The student in the bottom picture with the hat was one of them as well. And the one up in the top corner, both went to an elementary school in our district. And we spent the day talking to second graders about what was going to happen with the eclipse coming up, and the science behind it. And they made great manipulatives that we left with the teachers, and it was really fun. And then lastly, that bottom picture shows us in our small town up, the streets all got closed down, and they had a total eclipse of the parks, and they had booths set up, and we put our telescope, another great practice event. We did that the Saturday before the eclipse. And we had the pictures running so that taking images the whole time so that the students would have practice running all of the programs. And the streaming was happening as well. And people would come by and they'd be able to look at all the streaming and the images that we were collecting. Next slide, please. So we had media coverage that was quite amazing. Some of the challenges with it became mid-year, we had some problems with some local media that had tried to not portray our school in the best light. And so our communications director quickly said, okay, any media has to come through, any media connections have to come through my office and go through all these steps. And so it became a process rather than, sure, let's set up an interview. And so that was pretty much the main challenging. But then once the word got out that this was happening, it became like, oh my goodness, we've got another person that wants to interview us. Who's around? Like, I look at my team and I'd be like, who's available at this day? The bottom picture on the left, Logan's there. Crow, she also grew up with Crow. They went down to Fox 19 with me during spring break and did an interview in their studio. And then up in the top picture, I've got a couple students with me again over spring break, and Megan Mitchell from the NBC station here in Cincinnati came up and did an interview with us. And then that's all of us on a absolutely gorgeous sunny eclipse day there in the bottom with Fox 19 again. So some of the wins for the students, there was a lot of publicity out there for the grant, for all the partners with the grant, and for its mission. It was really great for them to be seen doing this great work as young people. It's a lot of them young women, mixed genders, like I said, and great public speaking experience. My student Crow down there did their project at the end of my astronomy class with me about how speaking about something you're passionate about helps you overcome the fear of speaking in public. And that was just really great as far as I was concerned. What a great takeaway that they got to have. Okay, next slide, please. And then here's some pictures from Eclipse Day. We had a really full weekend schedule. We had the Uptown Parks, Total Eclipse of the Parks on Saturday. We had a full practice on Sunday. And then we were here Monday morning to get set up and be ready to go for the streaming. It was the little weather picture is really great because it shows you how like the day of the eclipse was gorgeous. For Oxford to be in Ohio to be 76 and the beginning of April and sunny is amazing. And then the entire rest of the week was raining. We were in the newspaper, the local paper here on the Friday before the eclipse. And at the top of the front page where our article was, it said chance of snow today. So we felt very lucky to have the amazing weather we did. We set up at the high school where we had trained and practiced with all of our practices, except whenever we were doing outreach events. And our school did not have school that day. They canceled school for the eclipse. And so our team of students could have their family and friends, and we all could have our family and friends at the event with us while we were working. But yet we weren't right in the middle of town where there'd be a lot of distractions or people wanting to see what we were doing and possibly get in the way of us getting our work done. We collected really amazing data. We were complimented by the folks at Southern Illinois about the data that we got. It was almost crystal clear the entire time from first contact and the start of the eclipse to the last contact. And the students were great at taking charge. I would come in every once in a while to make sure everything was all set up and running well. But for the most part, I just got to be like the hostess milling about, making sure everybody was doing what they needed to do and having a good time. Some of the things that didn't work on Eclipse Day was that my Miami students, they did not cancel classes at Miami. And so they were in between classes and they had work that they had to get done. And so they weren't as involved in the implementation of collecting the data and working together as a team. They sat, of course, with everybody, but they didn't have conversations as much because they were, I think that they felt a little bit more time crunched and stressed. I had my family there, including my oldest daughter who has young children. And we had, despite us making a really nice line and announcements and emails to everybody, we had a toddler come up and adjust our telescope for us. And my students were great. And they're like, Ms. Schran. And so we came over, we quickly realigned it. And Chris at Southern Illinois never said he noticed any drop in our pictures. So that was a big shoe. And then the street, everything worked perfectly on our end. We collected great images. We were able to get them uploaded. After a minute, it took me a minute to realize that there were some hidden files on my computer I had to delete in order to keep collecting at the end, you have to cover the telescope to make sure that there's no artifacts that you're collecting that are not from the images that you want to collect. So they call those flats and darks. And there were programs of images we had to collect before we could pack up and go home. And I ran out of space and I'm like, where's all the space? And they were the hidden images, but we found that. The streaming was a tricky thing because we had to unblock a port, internet port that is almost always blocked, no matter if it's your home, if it's an institution like a university or a high school or wherever, that NASA wanted us to open. And it took me a lot of Sunday to get it to working on it, and it still didn't open. And then Monday morning of the eclipse, before that Fox interview uptown, I was on the phone with somebody from NASA who called to help me work through it. And actually, right before they called, I had restarted my computer. This is note to self: always shut down, restart, and bring it back up, update everything. And then it was able to, I think I had already fixed the settings and didn't know it because I needed to restart my computer. But the NASA guy was great. He was like, oh, thanks, you made my job easy. But so we had it all set up to stream. We did we streamed beautifully. However, at the technical booth at Southern Illinois never clicked to our site when they should have clicked to our site. And so I had to, of course, after all of the fun was all done, I got on Discord and asked the folks at Southern Illinois, how can I get the streaming for our site? Because I want to share with my students their work for the streaming. And he told me the news, and then I had to go ahead and share that with the students. But that's part of science. Like, it's a team, and things don't always work perfectly. And I think I have one more slide, if you could, please. Oh, I have 2 more slides, sorry. And then after the eclipse, we had a data party. So I want to say it was probably about like 2.5 weeks after the eclipse. We got together and I got to share. We met in one evening and I bought pizza for everybody, and I got to share some of the data that we collected. And I had talked with the folks at Southern Illinois University about how they'll be processing the data and the programs that they're using that were on the computer that our group has. So I showed them how they could make copies of the images and practice processing them and see what they could do with it. We set up a Google Drive folder for any images that they wanted to save and any pictures that they took of Eclipse Day. And I gave everybody thumb drives that they could take home copies of. Allison Allen works like Claire does with the Rockman group, and she came that evening as well. And it was a delightful experience for me because I got to just sit back and be the fly on the wall and listen to her interview my students and hear my students talk about their experiences. I loved Allison's questions, and I even more loved their responses. It was just amazing to get to listen to. And we were just recently told of 2 upcoming opportunities that my team and any way that my team expands gets to have through the Dynamic Eclipse Broadcast Initiative group. There's going to be Southern Illinois University hosts a star party to encourage backyard astronomy, or encourage communities everywhere, backyard or wherever, to get interested in astronomy. And so we're going to be streaming on October 19th, but we'll be practicing before then, and encouraging our community to come out, look through our scope and look through different things at the night sky that night. And then another opportunity is going to be, I'm going to talk with somebody on a Zoom on Friday from there about opportunities to get more images of the sun, because it is very active right now and looks really great. All right, and then I think I have my last slide. And overall, the challenges, I think mainly with wrangling students, learning curve with Discord for all of us, but we got there. And then at first, the female students were shy to take charge of using the telescope, but there was overall just amazing amount of success. The students all gained confidence with the telescope and technology. And just like anything that you put like a ton of time and work into, if you're able to get the reward from that, which we were, because it was a beautiful sunny day and everything on our end worked perfectly, the reward is proportional to the amount of work that we put in. And this is one of my favorite pictures. I'm hovering there in front of our station, and I was just so excited because we were getting, you can see that the lights on our school had come on because we were getting really close to totality. And I just was so excited. I didn't realize it at the time, but I don't think I was able to like just stand. I had to hop up and down. And then it's hard to zoom in on the faces on a slides presentation, but the faces of my 3 students that you can see there, they're just excited too. They're just full of joy. And even closer on the computer screen, you can see like the sliver of the sun remaining. And that student is completely focused on her job, and she's got the helm and she's got control. So I just love that Joanna, my colleague, took that picture and was able to share it with me, because it is just a gem for me. So anyway, I think that ends all of my slides. And thank you.
Thank you, Heidi. It was so exciting to hear about your journey, and that was such a joyous picture to transition on. I'm going to try to share Janna's video. As you remember me saying earlier, she's welcoming a new little one, so she couldn't be here live, but she created this video for us. And we tested the sound earlier, but Heidi or Claire, if you can give me a thumbs up so that I know that it's working for everyone.
Hi, my name is Janna Mino. I work at Hathaway Brown School, which is an all-girls school here in Cleveland, Ohio. If you're watching this video, it is because I am having or recently had or I'm about to have a baby. And so I'm recording this in the event that the day of the this wonderful opportunity, I am not physically available. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in to share my experience with this amazing project. But first, I'll share a little bit about the program that I run at Hathaway Brown. So I am the director of the Science, Research, and Engineering Project. We call it SREP. You know, education loves an acronym. This program is really incredible. So I only started last summer. It's been a year, but the program started in the late 90s. And it was designed to get girls hands-on experience in STEM fields, especially because then, and really still today, we have such a gap in, girls' representation, women's representation in STEM, which is why we're all here, right? So since the program has been founded, we have placed over 700 girls in science, research, and engineering labs. The goal is to get them in labs working as researchers, as scientists, as engineers, for really experiential learning. So more than just a shadowing experience, more than just an internship experience. We place them their freshman or sophomore year, and they stay in their lab until they graduate. They get over 200 hours every summer, and they also go into the lab during the school year. So it's very intensive and really authentic learning for them. Our program is also an ISEF, or International Science and Engineering Fair affiliate, which allows us to send our girls to this extremely prestigious competition every year. So it's a really beautiful program. But when I started, one of the first things I noticed was there was something missing. And in my mind, it was getting the girls, into the community. And so what I wanted to do was start an outreach component to the program. So what I did when I applied for this opportunity was launch that. And so we partnered with the Cleveland State Society of Physics students, of which I used to be a member when I was an undergraduate student there. And what's great about this program is that they do tons of outreach. So together we planned some outreach activities around the eclipse. And the students that were part of my small group that participated in this project, as well as several other students in my program, came together and were trained by the Cleveland State Society of Physics students, undergraduate and graduate physics majors, and ran the activities. We went to, I think, 7 branches of Cleveland Public Libraries and ran these activities with the public. And it was just an incredible experience. Not only were the young learners that were participating in these activities having a great time, but it was very cool for me to see my high school students kind of step away from the very serious nature of my program, which is really like a job, a really intensive experience where they're doing research at a very high level, and just have fun with the eclipse and with science, and having fun with these kids. So and really I got to see them be empowered leaders. So it was a really great opportunity for us to do this. Now, the 3 girls that were a part of this project specifically, you can see us here the day of the eclipse. We were fortunate enough to have a spot at the Great Lakes Science Center here in Cleveland. It was cloudy in the morning. It was misting a little bit. We were very nervous. It was April in Northeast Ohio. We were not overly optimistic about our chances of actually being able to collect good data and see the eclipse ourselves, but it ended up clearing up and being a perfect day. And so you can see the girls here, that's Mackenzie and Raina and Maria, and they're calibrating the equipment. We're getting set up. You can see one of the screenshots of the laptop of our device, and we're getting footage of the eclipse happening in action. You can see the girls talking to members of the public that were at this amazing fair that the Great Lakes Science Center put up, and they were having a great time kind of showing off their skills and knowledge with the technology and the equipment and the eclipse in general. And so I really was at this point in the project able to just let them go, and I was just sort of there to troubleshoot and supervise and be available to them, but they really ran the show, which was so cool to see. The other thing that was amazing was that this project allowed the girls to step into the spotlight. So they were interviewed, they were kind of the stars of the show. It was really incredible. They had sort of the red carpet rolled out for them at the Science Center. And so you can see them being interviewed here for the Einstein's Incredible Universe folks. And so they were just like over the moon, no pun intended, with being able to share everything that they had learned and their excitement and all of that. So it was very cool to see. My key takeaways from this experience, specific to the project and just in general for an experience like this, if this is something that you're going to be applying for, is that the girls can do hard things. They can handle rigorous, real science. We just have to step out of their way and let them. And although there was a learning curve, even for me with the technology, there was some programming involved, the organizers of this project were extremely supportive, but also the girls were willing and ready to jump in and troubleshoot and figure it out themselves. So we had to ask for lots of help, but they wanted to learn and they were eager to learn. So I really just had to step out of their way and let them do that. And they can do those things. As I said, the team that ran this project were extremely supportive, but also all the other groups that were involved in the project, we were all in it together. So we had a few days at the very beginning where we were in person together, getting trained on things, but we stayed connected throughout, which was extremely helpful, especially in those moments where it was kind of frustrating or you're running into issues that you don't know how to solve. And it feels very high stakes because, you want to get good data and you want everything to work out for the girls. But there is a community for this, and which is, we're all here on this call today, and there's so many more folks out there. Another takeaway was that we do still have a lot of progress to make for girls in STEM, which I know as a woman in STEM, I had one of my degrees is in physics. It is one of those fields that is still very underrepresented, and I had my own experiences in that field. But it was interesting for me to see that throughout the interactions the girls were having with, outside organizations, with other scientists, especially male scientists, that there were still some of these underlying issues that are not yet fixed. We're not there yet. And so it's extremely important to do these kinds of things for the girls and in general for everybody. The more everything that we do makes a difference because we're not there yet. So some specific examples, the girls experienced some a little bit of patronizing tones in the explanations to them and things like that, or feelings of frustration in some of the interactions that they had, or feelings that they were being kind of underestimated at times. And so it led to some really good conversations with me and the girls, and I was eager to jump into that lane with them. But that's something to be aware of for these kinds of projects. I mean, it is real science. They are collecting data, they are participating in real research, which means that there's going to be the real issues that do still exist. And so that was something I think it was important for me to take away from this, was that, okay, we're still needing to do all of this, and the girls need support through that because they're young, right? I'm a little bit further along in my career and I kind of know what to expect. But they need space to unpack that so that they don't get discouraged and feel like they don't belong. But all of that aside, and because of that, really, it was all worth it. It was such a great experience. And so any opportunity you have to apply for a project like this, to participate in anything like this, I encourage everyone to do it because it was so positive for us, and it was just so important. Kind of some of the logistics side of things, the challenges we encountered were really kind of superficial. It was things like schedules. Now, high school kids these days are extremely booked. And so even just having a group of 3 students, which you would think would not be too difficult to coordinate, it was extremely difficult to coordinate. Part of this challenge, I think, was because, I was operating outside of a traditional classroom for this. And even if I was using this in my class that I teach for my program, I didn't have these 3 students in the same group. And so there's things to consider if you're a traditional formal teacher, to embed this into existing structures where you have students together in their schedule, whether that's a formal class or any kind of like informal time in your school schedule. That would probably work out really great, because trying to coordinate when the students had windows in their schedule that they were free, or after school, or even before school, or even weekends, was really, really challenging. So there were times that it might have been 3 weeks until we met again. And so then everything we talked about at the previous meeting, we kind of had to refresh on, especially with the technology. Or there were times that I would meet with one of each student one-on-one and kind of catch them up individually, especially in the beginning as I was kind of training them on what I was trained on in the equipment. So it was kind of repetitive, and then remembering where each student was at, and then getting them together to then bring together their individual roles for the group event, for the eclipse. It was all really challenging. So that's something to really consider. And I think that a lot of the other groups in this project experienced that same challenge. And the other was the technology. So just, what the students reflected on at the end of the project to me was that they wished that they had more time to kind of really learn, like Python, for example, and just so that they could look at the code and understand what it was doing instead of just copying and pasting and letting it run. Because then if there's an issue, we're relying on reaching out to the researchers and getting their response and getting their help and scheduling a meeting and sharing our screens and having them type things, right? If they could have had the time, which again goes back to our first challenge, that was something that they shared, that they would have really enjoyed getting to learn that specific sub-skill so that they could have had a little bit more ownership over the project. So that's something to consider. The physical technology, the actual equipment, the telescope and the laptop and all of that were pretty user friendly. And once we kind of practiced several times, worked through that really easily. So those are just some things to consider in this specific project, but probably translate to other similar citizen science projects as well. But overall, it was a really great experience, and I would 100% do it again. I can't wait to find other opportunities, and I encourage everyone to do the same. So thanks for listening.
That was awesome to hear from Janna. And I know we're right at the hour, but I do want to thank all of our speakers, Heidi, Claire, Erica, and Janna, for sharing all of this wonderful information about what you did, the challenges, how they could be overcome in other similar citizen science projects. If I think people are dropping off, but maybe if we have time to answer one question, if Erica and folks have time. There were some questions that came into the chat, so let's see if we can just do one quick question. Do you know of any other resources or pathways provided so that participants can continue to explore their science identity through astronomy or otherwise? I think that was a great question that came in earlier.
Sure, I can answer a lot of these that have popped up in the chat. It was really important to us as we were putting the program together that we were not doing something that was one and done. So, first of all, intentionally trying to build community where people would be able to continue to interact with each other and to find new things to do together over time was important to us, as well as ensuring that the equipment that we were essentially just distributing and giving away to these groups wouldn't go to waste and just kind of sit in a closet after the fact. So you've heard the name mentioned a couple of times on this call, Southern Illinois University. They're the ones who direct the DEB project. I didn't mention their name, others did, but Southern Illinois University is creating many other opportunities for all of the people who participated in the DEB initiative to participate in upcoming research around solar science and some other things. Heidi mentioned a few of the things that she's going to be involved with as well. So there's ongoing opportunities both for the leaders of our groups as well as the participants to continue working with the equipment and contributing to science in terms of solar science as well as other stars and asteroids and comets. They're going to be studying all of them.
Thank you for answering that. And I know we didn't have time to answer all the questions, but I can see Claire put her email in the chat. If Erica or anyone else feels comfortable, feel free to put your emails in the chat so that people can keep reaching out and asking questions. You can always reach out to us at NGCP. You can share with us on social media and we'll respond. We'll put you in contact with the right people. Thank you again so much to all of our speakers. Thank you for all of you who came and put your questions and comments and excitement in the chat. If you have a few minutes when this call ends to complete our post-webinar survey, we would really appreciate that. And we really hope to see you at another upcoming webinar or event in the future. Thank you all again and enjoy the rest of your day today.
Thanks, everyone.